Yes, so now I hope I'm clearly audible. And today the session, as you're gonna know, that it's primarily is going to be a lot about our interactions that we are gonna do, primarily being based on the part that we had just concluded on. That's on human evolution. So human evolution is going to be the part for today's topic, on which we are gonna discuss a few points, a few factors about it. I hope you have also done your bit of learning on it, so that we can have a very fruitful discussion, as I told you.
Yes, I have studied a bit, but I'm not pretty confident about it.
No issues. Anyways, you know that the things here are going to be primarily very, we are going to start with very basic things, and slowly and steadily we are going to move forward to more advanced domains. So let's start. As you know that we are going to start with the basics, the very basics. That is, when did the life begin on our planet? And though it is a very, very wide topic, it cannot be concised down within such a small period of time. But still, because we have to have a starting point from where our session is going to begin. So just let me comprehend the things. Let me make things more precise and to the point from here. That there is no longer true to say anything about the life on Earth with confidence. As you know that there are still researches going on, there are still a lot of research papers coming out, new findings are coming out every single day which are proving the earlier findings wrong. So a lot of contradiction is here. So life, it's very well established that life is pretty old in Earth. So it's been there since a long period, and it's there for a certain period of time to stay. So as you know that our time has been extending since the time of the dinosaurs, which are perhaps considered to be one of the most, I would say, the oldest creatures that had ever lived. And their beginnings had started somewhere in and around approximately 250 million years ago. And from there onwards, our general biologic timeline calculation has started. Though the life on Earth had happened much longer than the time of the dinosaurs. Like if I say you, the time on Earth had started when life had entered the Earth through water. So, in that regard, I hope you know that the life had started for the first time on Earth through water. So, do you have any apprehension or idea on this fact? Do you know this fact?
Yes, I do. But I do know this fact because the earliest organisms that were single-celled ones at the first beginning, very beginning, they originated in water, and the earliest forms of humans that is, that can be, what should I say, that can be guessed upon is they did resemble tadpoles, and they lived a lot in the water. So everything began in the water. Yeah.
So, since the time, as you know, that the oldest known fossils were found, which were roughly around 3.5 billion years ago, which were way beyond the time of the dinosaurs. And
Yes.
recently, it has happened in August 2016 when there were a new group of fossilized microbes that were found that were judged to be somewhere in and around 3.7 billion years. So you can imagine that we are still far away from calculating the time since when the life had begun on Earth. So we are still on the way of calculation. We cannot really still give out a proper calendar or timeline that can give us the real extension of organic life on Earth. So that is how complex this domain is. And so we can now coming to the human community. As you know that today's session is primarily focused on the human evolution. So we are going to talk a bit about our ancestors also. That how had we started off from these primates till these more modern apes that we have formed, that is the Homo sapiens, and still we are evolving day on day. So how this evolution has happened? So the entire curve of human evolution is going to be explained here. So if we take the time of our ancestors, which is roughly in around 6 million years ago, the which is considered to be the modern form of humans that had came in around 200,000 years ago, from where we can consider them to be our direct originators or our direct ancestors, because we resemble a lot from them. So this is how generally, as you can see, it's just a very, I would say, basic visualization of how life had propagated in Earth. So you can see it had started from the very microbes to the fishes. These fishes had formed into reptiles when they had come onto land, which we know as the amphibians, who can live both on land and water. So generally, our evolution had started from that first fish that had tried to get its life out of water. So since that time, when amphibians were forming, we were evolving, we had formed into primate beings or the primates. And these primates slowly and steadily, when our vertebra, which we call as the spinal cord, when it began to take a linear shape, because you know that we are the only beings who walk on 2 feet. If not, we have one or two of our very close mates like the chimpanzees, who often you will see that they try to walk on 2 feet sometimes, but they cannot maintain it for a longer period of time. So, but they are mostly close to our genes. It's because of that spinal cord structure that had tried to become linear. Once human beings, our brain got more and more evolved, as you know, that we had tried to make new tools which helped us in hunting animals more easily. So you will see these things are very common with the other groups of primates also. Like you will also find the art of making tools, the art of community building, the art of staying in a family. These things you're going to find very closely with the chimpanzees. You're going to find it with the gorillas, who are very close relative with us. So you can understand that we are somewhere very close to that domain. And now coming to evolution, evolution is considered to be the process which can be termed as the gradual development in a particular situation, or we can also say, or over a period of time. So it is something that is very gradual in nature, and it helps us to scale that what level of development is a particular thing going through. So now I'd also like to know your apprehension on this term evolution.
So, as you just explained, evolution can be simply stated as the gradual procedure of changes that is observable through time. And evolution stems from the three basics of any, what should I say, any basic rule of any organism, that is adaptation, adjustment, and modification.
Very good, right?
They adapt to the new environment, to the new factors that are being thrown upon them. They adjust to them, and slowly but surely they do modify to them. And one of the greatest examples are we human beings, as we are learning in here. We have literally adapted, adjusted, and modified to make any physical situation, any landscape habitable. And that
Very good,
is one of the greatest achievements that humans have performed, that enabled their long survival. Whereas other animals, they could not compete with each other, right? Like dinosaurs. They were huge reptiles, they were huge organisms to be sure, but they were unable to adapt to the new changes that were being thrown upon them. They just simply, vanished. They perished to the
very good, very good.
situations.
These were definitely some of these terms that had separated us from all the living communities of the world. Definitely, these factors separated us from them, and that is why we are still existing while many of them are not. So now comes up another very important part of our evolution, that is this community building. That is this idea of families, this idea of groupism, this idea of friendship, or a larger community. So, what is this community evolution? If we have to make it a very, I would say, concise idea on, then we can say that it's a evolution of a particular social community that can be representative or represented as a sequence of events, like following each other in the successive time frames within the temporal social network. Now, to make this thing more linear or more to the point, we can say that, say for instance, when a certain group of people are binding in with another group of people with a common agenda or with a common plan uh, over the period of time, so that their, I would say, community can increase or their community can propagate for the betterment of the future, that's somewhat which we can term in as community evolution. When the community is going through evolution as a whole, not a single group of people, but an entire vast group of people together are following the same growth of propagation. So now the next question may arise, that what is this community on which we are learning about the evolution? So any idea about the community which is just apart from the bookish terminologies? Any simplistic idea?
Community is, a very flowery word for group, right? It just explains the group of people that are living together, that do share common ideals or lifestyles or anything. They have anything in common. They are inherently in community. You know, it can be physical features, it can be lifestyle, religion, um, where they live, the physical environment, and all the like. It, they Once people do get into the line of be having a common ground, they belong to a community, whether they'll realize it or not. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, that can be given as a very simplistic idea of about communities, right? You're in that regard. So now again, coming from your explanation, we can say that a group of people who are living under the same place for a certain period of time and are also having one particular characteristic which is very common. It is very important because you must have something in common. That is a very important binding factor. If you do not have certain that is common, that is wanted equally by each and every one of that group, then people will not associate together. And the community has three basic claims to give you a better idea about how does a community work. That is, a community is a group of people who interact with one another. So there has to be very wide scale interaction, frequent interaction between the groups. The next is the interaction is typically viewed as occurring within a bounded geographical territory. It's very obvious that people having a common idea, people having common characteristic must be living within the same territory. It's not possible for somebody sitting in Siberia looking for the same thing for with somebody who is sitting in Australia, because their geographies are different, their climates are different. So it's very evident that their wants will also be different. So these are some of the very basic things through which we can identify that how does a community work. And finally, the community's members also often needs to share common values, common beliefs, and behaviors. Like, this is something that is taking us closer to the term culture. This is how culture will evolve now from a community. That this group of people who are having one same agenda, now slowly when they will interact more often with each other, it's very natural that their value system will be affected by one another. So their beliefs will be the same, and their behaviors will also more and more, it will become more and more homogeneous. So this is how the community will progress. That is, people will begin to think mostly the same way, people will begin to believe the same things, and more importantly, their behaviors are going to be very identical with one another. Now the next thing that comes up from this community is society. Any idea on what is this society that is so often talked about?
Society, in my opinion, is a pretty complex concept, a pretty complex term to define, but yet still, it is very intimately related to community, and it defines a group of people that do share a common that do share a common, you know, living area, common ideals, common beliefs, and all the like.
So
And it
here, society, we can also term it as, I would say, a more evolved from form of a community, where this group
absolutely.
of people are rather having common territories. They are now having more and more interactions because their geographical area is becoming more binded together. So it's more closer. Naturally, the interaction is going to increase, and so their culture is going to be very widely similar to one another. So this is something that are the laying stones of a society. So some of the basic factors that are very evident in a society are like individual is the basic component of a society, and then the interaction between these individuals will give birth to group, which leads to a society. So the more and more, as you can see through this, the interactions, the more they are happening, they are leading to the formation of newer groups, and these newer groups are leading towards the formation of a society. Like you see the players during a football match or in other games, any outdoor games, you will see that they often play together, and they are definitely not a society. They are just a group of, or an aggregate of people who are working for the same agenda. Like say when 11 footballers are playing for one team, their only one agenda is that so that their team can win. So a certain group of people are defending the ball so that the ball does not enter their territory. A certain group of that team is now looking forward how they can take the ball into enemy territory or the opponent territory so that they can push for a goal so that their team can win. but though their goal is the same, they want to win, but they are not a society. Why they are not a society? Because their beliefs are different, their interactions may be different, their culture is different, and their territories are different. So society is something that has to be very homogeneous. Mostly we have seen this. Now comes the topic of evolution. So development, as you have seen, is a very key factor for evolution. So here you will see that how does a community development work. So here, if you see here carefully, you'll find that the community development is a process where community members come together to take collective actions and generate solutions to common problems. So this is something where we had just begun from. We are again going back to the same. That is, they are beginning with the same goal, and a certain group of people are having this one idea, so that if their community goes for their welfare, they know that all of them will be benefited. This is this common goal idea, that if my community progresses, all of us will progress. So based on that, collective decisions are taken, collective actions are taken, which generate solutions to common problems. And some of the parts of this well-being involves economic betterment of people, social well-being of people, environmental stabilization, and cultural development. Now comes human development. This is something I think that is more conventional. So I'd like to know your perspective on this.
Human development,
And you can very often
it's
use the information I've given forward. Just enhance your new points by integrating them also.
yes, sir. Human development, it can be an individualistic process where only a few particular individuals develop themselves, undergo development, and it can human development can also lead to also is applicable for masses, where masses and masses of people undergo development and transformation for their own benefit, own goods. I'm sorry. And as you have written here, I'm sorry, I'm reading this here just from the straight up from slide.
Just
Human
make it a
development
very
is
simplistic kind of an idea, that whenever you see that these are the things that are so very often that we see in front of us in our society. People often talk about development, people often talk about human development so often in and around you. If you open the news channels, they talk about human development, why is it not
Hmm,
happening, or why is it
hmm,
there. So what is this development thing about? So how can we judge that whether human beings are in the way of development, or we are stuck, or we are moving backwards? So these are the things that is often narrated in the public. So how can we know them?
hmm.
That's what I'm asking.
One of the biggest indicators of development is the modernization that they can undergo. By modernization, I would like to clear that I do not mean westernization. By
Okay,
modernization, I mean that improvement in medical facilities, good healthcare, great birth rates and fertility rates that indicate a growing population that is not static, that old age is not piling up and all that,
very good.
and access to education, and especially in the society, that a lot of societies are patriarchal, that demean women. So women empowerment is also an important indicator nowadays.
Good, good. So basically, what I can comprehend from the data provided and the way you had comprehended this human development is that it is definitely a simple process of enlarging people's freedom and opportunities and improving their well-being. So simplistically, we can say this. So generally, we are looking forward to these three common factors, that is to increase more and more people's opportunities, to give them freedom, and to look for their well-being. So based on that, there are certain parameters. So basically, we have selected four very important aspects about this growth through which we can judge that what is the state of this human development. To begin with, we have physical human development. So by the very name, you can understand that it has a lot to do with our physical well-being. Like the physical development is the process that is starting with human infancy and is continuing into the time when he is late adolescent, and concentrating on the gross and the fine motor skills, as well as looking after the time when the person is going through puberty. In the same way, physical development is also involving developing control over the body, particularly muscles and physical coordination. So it is a, I can say it's a entirely a biological aspect or a biological growth of a human being that is being continued since the time of infancy. to the time of puberty, when a person is learning or his body is now coping up with new motor skills, and the body is gaining more and more control. So this is the first phase of development or progress that a human goes through. Now the next part, and from here things will get, I would say, more complex and a bit hard to judge, like the emotional human development. That how is a person evolving emotionally? Like here you can say that the emotional development is actually referring to the ability to recognize, to express, as well as manage feelings at different stages of life, so that we can have empathy for the feeling of others. Like, see, in this respect, we have something that is so closely related with us that has happened in the recent days in our own state. I'm going to talk about that. It's, it has been a most burning topic in our state since the last 4 days. So everybody is talking about this generally, and I feel that we being in this domain of education, we being in this domain of uh, learning, we should also shed some light onto this, and how is this idea of emotional development so closely related with the accident or this thing that had happened recently. I'm talking about a recent Jadavpur University incident that had happened. So there you have seen that a lot of perspectives are coming through various sources of media. A lot of psychologists are also giving their views. A lot of social workers, a lot of human rights, they are giving their opinions. So the first and foremost thing that is being mostly highlighted in this incident, I hope you are also very aware of it because it's there everywhere in the newspapers, media, everywhere.
Yes, sir.
That is the problem of ragging. The problem of ragging is being highlighted everywhere, and everybody considers it to be the sole reason, or we can say the main reason behind this incident. So has anybody tried to walk through the process, that how is this process of ragging being initiated? Because they're the group of people who are actually responsible for this incident, they are not the first group, and we can be very sure that they are definitely not the last people who are doing so. So there must be some source, because they are also human beings like us. So there must be some source that has led into this idea of superiority in them, for which they had gone for this, I would say, bombardment of superiority on their juniors. So it is entirely to do with the emotional development, which I think it has a lot to do with the social upbringing that this group of people has gone through. And we can generally not define the university or the atmosphere in the university as the sole reason, because I generally do not believe that these people who are responsible for this incident, they transformed just because they are students of this university, they were good people.
No,
I don't
it
believe
is
that.
pretty stupid to blame that an educational institution has something to do with a power cycle, that people want to feel powerful. They want to establish their, what should I say, their name in their social circles. That's why they do it. I have been heavily bullied since in my school,
Correct.
and this school was a pretty small school in a small town, and nothing has to do with big cities and all that educational institutes. It was just a school. So it's just in my opinion, a process to bring their names into the limelight of the social circles that they belong to.
So I definitely believe that though the university, is one of the finest of our countries, and definitely I'm not blaming or defending the authorities who are relative with this university for this incident. I can generally find out, like any other common person, that a great mishap has happened from the authority side also, that things could have been judged better, things could have been dealt with better, and more often by the proper investigation or by the proper use of infrastructure, we could have stopped this. But anyways, it could not be done for this time at least, and we have seen this incident happen in front of us. So now the question arises, that is it the right thing to do, that to blame the entire mentality growth of these people as a result of them being the students of this university? Because though there can be some shortages of security infrastructure, there can be some shortages of authoritative infrastructure, but the university is definitely not teaching or making the student the people who are doing this ragging, or they are definitely not teaching this culture of ragging to their people or to their students, so that they can do it with their juniors and the future students of this university. So it is a problem we have to identify, that is starting way ahead of their time when they have joined this university. I can definitely boast for many of my students who are presently in that university, and many pass outs also, that they were not at all affected by this mentality of superiority. They were totally different from what is being projected out of the students. So how did they become different while a certain group of students are acting as if this is the trademark of this university? So we have to understand that it is something that is entirely emotional, human development related, rather than just trademarking it to a community or to a group of students or to a university. So if we trace out the students, if we trace out their past, if we trace out their school days, if we trace out their social upbringing, their childhood, we will see that there were definitely traces of this idea of bullying people. You will definitely find out traces of it even in their school days, definitely find out of, even sometimes I will also like to say that even some of these students who are actually doing this bullying to the other students, they might themselves be bullied someday. So this is also a reality which we should not forget. By any regards, I am not trying to defend this certain group of people, let me mind you time and again, because this is something that is highly debated now in our state, and still the debate is going on who is responsible. So I'm not the judge, I'm not giving out any verdict. I'm just telling a few things that through which we should, or by these lenses we should see this thing. So like the next thing that I'm going to highlight here, as I told you, is the human development. You will see that in our schools, when we are being taught, so there used to be a section where used to be taught about morals or moral studies. There used to be a subject, but with the passage of time we have seen that that subject had gone towards the backseat, with in terms of marks distribution or in terms of weightages. We have often kept moral science at the back doors, as if it is not that important. Same is the thing that we are doing with environmental science. And I believe these two studies are important for any educated person. No matter how educated you are, you must have a basic understanding about your environment, and you must have a basic understanding of your duties as a citizen. But these two subjects are highly neglected in our education system. And I believe that this is one of the biggest factors for which incidents like these are happening. And if we do not go to the root cause, then just by giving punishment to a few group of students, this I would say this infrastructure of ragging will never be stopped. We will never see any realistic outcomes until we get to the root cause. And the root cause starts with the schools. The schools are not, I would say that in a syllabus is not structured in a way so that we create people who will become better citizens. We are only focusing on academics. We are only focusing on students who will score higher marks, who will beat the first boy, who will become the first girl, who will score highest in the boards, who will get the best universities, who will get the best salary packages. But hardly there is any session or there is any thinking between the students or the parents or the teachers where we talk about that how should we behave with others, how should we express our feelings, how should we express our emotions, how should we show empathy towards others. So have you ever heard about these discussions in your school life?
Uh, when I was, in really junior classes, they did used to have these discussions. Like even in the report cards, they would used to have a section to define yourself. Like are you aiming to be as a human? But nowadays, I do see that portion lacking
But
because
where has that portion gone? Even I believe you, and even in my school days also, let me say you that I had also seen that particular section of our report card which gave us an assessment about our personality. But where had that gone when we had progressed into higher classes? Why is it not present in the university's mark sheet? Why is it not present in the mark sheet of the schools, the boards? Why is it not present in the mark sheet where you are going to be selected to do a job, when you're doing these competitive exams, when you're passing them, when you're spending nights and nights after for getting that job, for passing that entrance exam, why are these institutions not judging how are you as a person? Just by simply relying on your academic stature, just by relying on your intellect, they are recruiting you. They are putting you in colleges, they are giving you jobs, but nobody is having this assessment that how is this person emotionally, though there are many many parameters through which we can judge a person, through which we can put his personality to test, through which we can, I would say, channelize his emotions in a positive manner. But nobody wants to invest in these things. All of us are just running madly behind these marks, these salary packages, and these admissions in the better institutions. So this is a problem which I believe, this ragging problem is entirely emotional. Certain incidents happen every now and then, like it has happened now. It is very very sorrowful, but the thing is that we talk a few days when these events happen. After a few months all of us forget, and we begin to lead the same old life which we had been doing since decades. So who can guarantee that another event like Jadavpur will not happen with some other university? Nobody can guarantee. So I believe that we as learned people, we as the students of geography, we should also put towards the this idea of emotional growth or emotional development, rather than simply being focused on marks and figures. So this was something which had made me to get invested, because you know that this is such a burning topic. I just could not evade it during our session. So, anyways, now we will be moving on with the next part of this development that we were talking about of human beings. That is the intellectual part, which is very obvious and straightforward. You can understand that we are simply here judging their minds, their capability to think, that means their ideas and thoughts, and how do they make the sense of the world that they live in. So, an intellectual study of human development is all about his intellect or his intelligence. Next, and the most important parameter here is the social development. I'd like to know your overviews on social development. What do you consider?
Social development, in my opinion, is the parameter in which we judge a person's ability to blend in a society. As humans are inherently social organisms, right? So, how well do they blend in? That's our social development. And
Yes.
social development heavily relies on empathy, ability to connect and communicate with people, and most importantly, I would like to, as a resident of West Bengal, I would like to that maintaining peace, because there is a lot of violence going on. It
Yes.
is not just in the form of physical violence. It's made a whole lot of violence that different sections of violence
So
that
another
I
thing
can
that
point out right now.
another very debated topic will again be arised here by the topic that you had just raised of this violence, that you will often listen to very often nowadays. People often term this many times. I have been seeing this since the last few months. The term of intolerance. Have you heard it?
Absolutely.
So what is this intolerance and what has it to do with this social development? How can we judge it to be a barrier of a social development? What is this intolerance about?
Intolerance is all about not accepting the views and anything that does not match with your ethics, your views, and your mindset. Anything that does not matches with your mindset and you do not accept it, actually everyone can have their own opinions, but intolerance is when you project your opinions upon to someone else. That is intolerance in my eyes.
So
because
exactly, exactly. Yes. Please continue.
because you might have a lifestyle. I might not agree with some elements of your lifestyle, but I have no freaking right to judge you. I have no freaking right to just project my opinions, all my anger and frustration upon you. That's intolerance.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise I'm just a human with
That is
emotions.
something that we can say, that when somebody is not open to accepting others' views, this is a very wide scale problem that we have been seeing in our country since the last few years. And I will never say that this was a situation throughout. Because I have been telling you many a times in our previous sessions also that India was the mother of democracy of the world. That there are
Hmm.
many countries in the world who talk about democracy, who project themselves as the rescuers, who project themselves as they have brought this idea of democracy to the world. They need to save democracy for the world. But let me remind you, if you look back at our history, the idea of democracy was firstly being introduced by the Indian civilization. So from
Hmm.
here, slowly the idea of democracy had passed on to the other nations, and ultimately, you know that now what has happened to us, that is the mother of the democracy, India. The thing is that recently there is a tide of change that has been happening over our civilizational mindset that has been to paint somebody under a homogeneous structure. I mean to say that you need to follow a certain group. That is the notion of this genre that is going on. You need to be either right or you need to be either left. You cannot be centralistic. There is nobody
Yeah, like
in today's
no,
world who
there
can
is no place for gray. Either it's
ex-
black or white.
exactly. So this is a constant hammering on people happening since the last few years, that you either have to take choose this right path or the left path. You cannot be in the middle. So who has given you the right to decide that Indians cannot stay in a middle state? India cannot be at a centralistic location. They cannot have any ideas that are, I would say, in middle of two wide scale opinions. What if I do not want to either approve or disapprove one thing? I would like to evade that. So here there is a constant pushing that no, you have to say yes or no. What if somebody does not want to say yes or no? So this idea of people's rights, it's constantly becoming more and more morphed day by day. This constant hammering on people to fall under one territory, to fall under one group is being done. And that is the reason why we see that very often a certain group of people often come out sometimes in the open while saying that we feel that our community is not safe, or we feel that our religion is not safe. It is all due to this society that is slowly just moving. I don't know what kind of a democracy we are thinking of India to be in the upcoming few years. Because a democracy generally talks about people where they have the right to say anything and they have the right to question anything. But there are certain parameters put on. Just have a look at a very common thing, a very basic thing, like the movies. A
Hmm.
movie is what? What is a movie, according to you? It is, I think, that the best way in which human beings can express their ideology to a large group of people. I think it is still considered in the world to be the best way of spreading your idea to a large group. That is by making a movie or by making a video, let's say. There
Hmm.
are so many restrictions you see today. So many restrictions. You cannot make a movie on these topics. You cannot make a movie where there will be certain things said. Why? This censor board that is present in our country, let me tell you, it is the most illogical censor board of the world. The way it cuts scenes in a movie is unbelievable. Unbelievable the way it cuts the. And it is not only the case for the last few years, it has been there since throughout the time of Indian cinema. The censor board is one of the sole reasons why our Indian cinema could not reach to the level which it was capable of a lot of years ago. Because our Indian cinema was one of, we still had one of the greatest minds of the world in terms of filmmaking. But we could not make movies that were, I would say, that beyond time, or we could not make movie that was at par with the world. Many of them, though, in spite of so many restrictions, did, but a large group could not. It is due to these restrictions, that is, you have to go through one channel and you have to follow one certain group, you have to follow one certain guideline, and you cannot go outside them. Like, say, uh, when the first idea of the world was given, I'm just giving you a very relevant example. When the first idea of the world was given, that it was round, the earth was round, do you know what was done with that person? That civilization had pushed that person that you will be hanged if you don't change your statement, because
Yeah,
our civilization believes that the world is flat. I'm not going for
like
the name.
I was just when you said the statement, I was about to give Galileo's example.
Yes,
He was the first person who propagated the idea that the earth revolves around the sun, but the Catholic Church, just home present him for that just one view.
yes. So this is a thing that has been happening in human civilization since hundreds and thousands of years. That is to not giving you the freedom to share your mind. Let's not forget that human beings have developed only because of this capability of thinking that is way beyond our mind. If we are restricted, if we become restricted beings like the way we are being in this present scenario, that do not have the openness, we do not have the open mind to think, we do not have the open platforms to tell, then our downfall is very near. We cannot stop that. Like, say, for
Hmm.
instance, when the first human being had thought that human beings will be flying, so many of them might have told him that you are mad. It's impossible. What joke you are saying? How can a human being fly? But see, today, flying is like eating bread and water today because of the presence
Yes.
of airplanes. So now, when somebody says that I can disappear, still people will say him the same things. But for that person to be able to say that we human beings can disappear and again reappear, you have to give that person freedom. And only by getting the freedom, this person will be able to invent, this person will be able to theorize, and finally to put it into practicality. So openness is, I would say, is more important to human civilization than water. Because if this openness goes, if this openness of ideas is restricted, human beings will not be able to cope up with nature. And our downfall will be again because of the same reason that for which the dinosaurs had fallen. That is, they could not cope up with the change of nature. So we are
And
also, yeah,
actually, one of the greatest examples that criticizes openness and all of the like is if we read fiction books, if like for example Fahrenheit 450, 451 or 1984 by George Orwell. It's a great book. It was kind of criticized because of the such views that in the facade of democracy that people could be so oppressed. But look at North Korea. He published the book in 1949 and 2023 is the present. Exact the same thing is happening, but mostly his views were not taken so seriously when that book was published.
yes, correct. There are so many authors, there are so many writers, there are so many directors whose work could not reach the masses. And I'm not a judge here. I'm not saying that he did a good work or he did a bad work. But what I am saying is that at least we should give the platform where human beings can put forward their ideas. Now let the community decide what is good, what is bad. What is good, what is bad, let the community decide. Like, say, for instance, let's talk about something that is very more relevant to us, like YouTube. This is the most used application, I think, in our smartphones. So YouTube
Yes, sir.
also has a certain level of parameters and restrictions for their videos. You will be able to see when you try to upload anything. They also have certain guidelines which
Absolutely.
a person who is uploading a video needs to follow. If we do not follow, then they will strike down the video and they will not let us upload it. Like, say, there are very good guidelines that are given out by YouTube, like you cannot give out copyrighted content in YouTube. You cannot put somebody else's video by your name in YouTube. YouTube is able to recognize it and put it down. So these are some of the good guidelines given. But there are certain ideas, there are certain words, there are certain discussions which are again restricted by these guidelines of YouTube. Many, many guidelines. Like, say, for instance, if you talk about something that are very factual from the ancient Indian temples, some recent, some old events that had happened, and we have documents of that, we have proof of that, ancient evidences of that. Try to upload a video of that kind in YouTube. I can guarantee that the
Yes.
algorithm of YouTube will push that video so down that it would be almost invisible. Nobody will be able to search it.
I've seen like multiple videos regarding mental health, you know, what should I say, natural human processes and all the like. They were all banned, demonetized, or they were absolutely devastated, ruined by the algorithm, as you just told.
So who is doing this? Who is deciding that what a human being should see? What should we see? What should we not see? Who is doing this parenting on us? Because we must remember that most of the people who are seeing YouTube consider themselves to be adult, and the people who, those who I consider that they are not adults and seeing YouTube, we can bring in these guidelines. But let's talk about that also. When we are again restricting that certain group of people who are minors by not showing them certain videos, so what do you think? Just by not showing a certain group of people a certain kind of video, can you keep that idea outside that student or that child by not showing him?
Absolutely not.
In today's world, there are so many ways in which you can go through that idea or you can go to that data. If not YouTube, some other portal, that person will surf and the person will reach. So why I'm saying YouTube is because it is the most widely used platform for video watching by human beings today. So we consider it to be the greatest platform. So why you are restricting people? You are saying that a person who is below 18 years age should not be seeing these videos. Correct. But do you really think that, let's say, a school child who really wants to see a video which is 18 plus category, will he give you the right data that no, I am a minor, don't let me see the video? So,
Absolutely not.
so what mechanism you have? There is a small mechanism that you are 18 years, yes or no. If you are yes, you can see the video. Do you think that the child will click no? And
And even if what should I say, if the ban is strong, they will just simply change their age birth year. I'm sorry, birth year to show that they are 18 plus, just to see that video.
so this idea, what I'm trying to say here is that this idea of not letting people share their ideas, and in this regard of YouTube, I told you that how we are not let to see data. In some ways, we are stopped from uploading data, and in some ways, we are tried to stop from seeing data. So this is some of the examples which is happening day in day out, which is restricting human masses to share their ideas and to gain new ideas. So what will happen here is that definitely human beings, these studies, these terminologies, this idea of concept building, this will happen in the underground level, which is very, very harmful. Like say, when you are learning something from a institution that is widely open in a market where people can see it, how it functions, how it teaches, when you are learning something from it, there is a high chance that if you make a mistake, that would be very easily identified and changed. But what if you're learning the same skill from an unorganized, say, a group of people who have no idea of what they are teaching you, but they are teaching you the thing that you're looking for? So the outcomes, will it be in control? The outcomes will never be in control. Like say, for instance, let's say a person who wants to learn rifle shooting.
Hmm.
A person who wants to learn, I really want to learn how to do rifle shooting. But I am not in any armed forces. I do not work for the police. I am not a part of any intelligence bureau. I am not a part of Indian Army. So when this person will try to learn these rifles, do you think that there are any open institutions that will call you that take a subscription here and within a 1 year course I will teach you? No, there is nothing like that. So, but this person wants to learn, and it is not always important that every time you have to learn a certain skill set for doing one occupation only. There can be so many things. Though you will say here that what if that person who learns rifle shooting, he comes out in the public and starts shooting people? But people have even done this by coming out of army. We have seen so many people in the armed forces also to shoot in the open public. Just recently it happened in Kolkata, you remember?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So how can you guarantee that just that this person who is trying to learn this skill, he will actually harm the society? Who decides this? These are also, I would say, certain ill factors about our society, that is, I would say, retarding our evolution. And let's tell you, our evolution is only possible by learning new and new skills. Human beings should never stop, which I believe. We should never come to a halt that this is the top of success. and we can just lie down from today. If that happens in human civilization, I can guarantee that the fall will happen in the next 100 years. It's very evident that we need to keep learning, we need to keep changing. And every civilization, every community, every living being that thinks that we need to continue in this earth, we need to change. We need to change on a day to day basis. And how can we change? If we are not being able to learn the skills, if we are not being able to tell our opinions, if we are not being able to gather the data which we are looking for in the open. Like I said, there is such a huge part of the data which is not available in the open, but is important for certain studies. People gather it from dark internet. Do you know what is this dark web?
Kind of, yes.
You will hear many horror stories about it. People often
Yeah.
many horror stories that this dark web is very bad. This dark web is something that you will open that. Many people have also seen, they tell it in the open internet that when you open this dark web, you will see ghosts, you will see paranormal activities. Nothing of this sorts happens in a dark web. A dark web is generally a portal which is very much equivalent to internet, that will just take you to a different set of data which is not available in the open internet. So now the problem, there are many problems, we cannot deny that. There are definitely some problems of using dark web, because most of the scammers and hackers, they are using this dark web. And there is a high probability, if you're trying to use your system and trying to enter dark web, your system can be compromised. So it is for this reason that most people who are in the domain of internet and computers, they tell you to not go into dark internet. The reason is security, not because some ghost is there to kill you. But people propagate these ideas so that people stay away from it, because the ultimate goal of the government and the authorities is to make people stay away from dark internet. So it is, I believe, this certain group of organizations who try to keep out these sources of evidences and I would say this data from us by spreading out these rumors. And it is also a process that has been happening since ages. Let me tell you about an event of, I'm not naming that temple, it is in South India. And it is said that the South Indian temple was so advanced considering its age that it had an underpass. And I have one of my mates who is an archaeologist, he is working on that temple. So it is highly discreet information, which for that reason, I'm not telling everything in the open, just a small glimpse I'm giving, that that temple has an underway pass that can connect southern India with different states of South India. It is that long of a tunnel. And the ancient ruler who actually made that temple, he used to use that to connect with his nearby kings in the shortest route. It is exactly like the cyber link that Elon Musk is saying that I will be making in the upcoming 20 years. He will be making cyber links all over the world. What is this cyber link? It is just a tube like, I would say, highway structure where vehicles will move at the highest speed, highest possible speed. It is a cube like structure, like a total vacuum without any obstruction. There will be no speed breakers, nothing to stop you. So through that hyperlink, you will reach from one destination to other 10 times faster than a normal highway. So for that, vehicles are also being made. Everything is being done in the background. So this was the early idea of this hyperlink that was already made by an Indian king. And that link was used very often during the attacks of the British Empire also. The king fled
Oh.
with his family by using that tunnel. The British king, the British ruler could never find where this king and his family went. Though he conquered his territory, he could never trace his treasure.
So,
And
like in the different archaeological studies of Colosseum, as you were saying, exactly the same thing is being, discovered. Under the Colosseum, there were long passageways that connected, into different residential or temporary residential units of the gladiators.
so at that point of time also, a great bad thing happened for that kingdom also, which I was just mentioning, who made that passage, that when the British had conquered it, it plundered the territory. Lots of village men, people in that territory were killed. Women, small children, they were killed. But why I'm criticizing this king again here is that he used that passage, that safe passage link only for his family. He left his people die. So the British plundered through, they looted everything, they killed through people, though many people were living even after that onslaught, but a lot of people lost their lives. But the king safely moved away and he could never be traced. Let me tell you that after taking on the kingdom, the British were there. Even after that, they were uh, 200 years approximately in our country, but they could never have any trace of this king and his family. So there are certain, I would say, conspiracy theories saying that it might be that underpass that he had made, that could actually be a portal. It could be a portal that connected one continent to another continent. There are many things that can be left unsaid in our world, which have no explanations on and human beings have no idea of. So it may be possible that hyperlinks were actually made at that time, where a person could move from one continent to another continent in a split second without being even going through hours and 8 days, that fast. So you can understand why I mentioned this fact here is because the king had made this infrastructure. They were way ahead of time, but the normal people did not have access to it. So the same formulation is going on in 2023. We have a lot of data, we have a lot of informations out in the open, but normal people will not have access to it. That is again being decided by certain parental figures. So I consider that until and unless general infrastructure and great infrastructure is made open for all, though a certain group of people will develop, but human society cannot develop as a whole. This is the biggest barrier that we are going through now. That is the non-sharing of high-scale data. That is my, I would say, final thing that I would like to say by ending today's topic. But it is not the end of the story. It is just the prelude of the story. And we are going to continue on the upcoming phases of how human beings had made their villages, how the villages were converted to small towns, how the small towns were converted to kingdoms, and then cities, countries, one after the other. So this had happened over periods and ages of time. So firstly, the agrarian society will come, you will see. Before that, people learned the use of stones. Even before that, people used to use certain other articles to spend their lives. So everything will come one after the other. Today, I just gave you the glimpse. So we are going to continue on this regard on the next session that we will have on it. So now your overviews.